This is Nate Wood, one of the most original drummers, a propulsive mix of musicality chops, originality, and adventurousness. Which you probably already know if you're watching this, but you probably also don't hate Nate Wood solos like this. But I'll get to the point. There he is. Good. How are you? Recently, I had the opportunity to talk to Nate Wood for the new 80/20 Drummer podcast, and I knew something he didn't. I'd learned a song by one of his most famous bands, Kneebody, and now I was about to ask him for his reaction. Well, do you have any specific feedback on Greenblatt? But let's back up. Around 2007-2008, I started seeing video clips of this really unorthodox fusion band from the West Coast. They were attracting big crowds for what seemed like pretty esoteric music. But they had one thing that probably helped. They rocked. And the drummer was a huge part of that unique sound. Of course, we know him now as Nate Wood. He's played with Wayne Krantz, Tigran Hamasyan, Donny McCaslin, Sting, and maybe his most amazing accomplishment yet is that he, as far as I know, is the singular musician to create a one-man band that's actually cool. And it's not just cool. For Nate's, one-man band obviously gets your attention because, damn, humans can do that. And here's the thing, he keeps your attention because the songs are actually musical and actually rock. So it's obvious that I have huge respect for Nate, to the extent that it would be hugely intimidating for him to be judging my playing. Much less on something he recorded on. I'd have to be the height of arrogance to think I had any business pulling such a cowboy stunt. I'd have to have zero capacity for embarrassment. Luckily, I'm me. Well, do you have any specific feedback on Greenblatt? Today on 80/20, I talked to one of my absolute drum idols, Nate Wood, and I asked him what he thinks of my performance on a song he recorded. Stay tuned. So let's talk about the song I'm actually going to play. In 2013, Kneebody released the record that did the most to rearrange my atoms, called The Line. A few months later, I was in the audience at one of their CD release shows at Shapeshifter Lab in Brooklyn. That record followed me mucho places, including Hong Kong, and I listened to it so much I basically memorized every note of the album. Since I didn't have much time to prepare after Nate confirmed the date, I needed something I could work up fast, but also something with room to explore. It wasn't going to be trite, that's for sure. That's a 2-weeker, and I'm not trying to die. So I gravitated to a wonky little B-side song called Greenblatt. It had a few things going for it. It's odd meter and has some spots where you can get caught out if you're not counting or not on the ball. It has a big dynamic contrast, which is fun. And it's slow, and there's a lot of space, which is also a challenge. Touch, groove, and sensitivity. I had a feeling Nate would appreciate the selection too. We're here for day one of Greenblatt, really day only. I've got a day to learn this. Luckily, I've heard it a bunch before. Don't know if Nate's gonna listen to it, don't know if he'll like it, but we gotta do what we gotta do. Let's get some takes, you guys. Before we get into it, I had another rule this time. Because I'd already heard the song a bunch, I was going to record it in one day. This would keep perfectionism from creeping in. I'd do as many takes as I needed to get one that felt good in the moment, that I didn't immediately hate upon listening back. Which ended up being 2. Now, let's introduce you to the song. Greenblatt begins ambiguously, with a lot of ambience. Nate, in contrast, is supplying crisp kick drum and rim shots, which gives it an effect similar to a sample. A few bars in, and it gets to the main refrain. It's this bit, in slow 6, with the 2 snare notes and 2 kick notes as an anchor. Let's demonstrate on the kit. I'll put the metronome on in a slow 6 while I demonstrate this groove. The simplest way to do it is by playing 8 notes on the hats, but that ignores the whole universe of things you can do in those big resolution points. Let me take away all the ornamentation. Now, let's hear how Nate fills some of those spaces. So there are a ton of things you can do, but little fills with buzz rolls on the snare sound nice. Sixteenths of sextuplets on the hats sound great. And finally, you can do this little implied metric shift thing sometimes I hear. It's also a challenge to keep everything in time because for big parts of the song, there's no reference, like here. With all that in mind, I set out to record this. Let's follow along with my second take of the day as I explain these elements of the song in context. Here I am just trying to keep it steady, and in the pocket during the verse. I'm also using my buttery equilibrium hats to keep the chatter below the volume level of the melody notes. Let's listen to some more. The second time through, the keyboard right hand comes in, and I have to lock up with that. Let's skip ahead to the bridge. I realized later that Nate played the hats or stack, and I've gone to the ride here, but I think it worked. Let's listen to a little of Adam Benjamin's Beautiful Roads solo. Adam was also the composer of this song. I had to let that play because it's entrancing. Then, after the knee body bat signal, the melody comes back. Then the bridge comes back. It repeats a few times, then ends on a single chord. All right, so 2 takes in, I feel like I got something that felt pretty good, and it's just have to listen to the mix and the final recording to see if it sounded as good as it felt. But felt good, so I'm going to take it. All right, you guys. Now, the astute among you will notice that my hair is shorter in the reaction video than in the take. That's because I accidentally deleted all my vlogger footage, so I had to re-record some of it in a move we in the industry call a wet wipe. You guys haven't heard of that? Fine. A reenactment for you outsiders, those of you not in the industry. Anyway, I finished the take with a day to spare and checked my email from Nate, and sure enough, he was willing to take a look. Which should probably scare me, but whatever. So full of bravado, I posted it on Instagram, and then did what any healthy adult with a healthy relationship with social media did. I put my phone down and spent the rest of the evening enjoying the company of my wife and dog. Just kidding. I obviously re-listened and re-listened and then re-listened. And through the process, I started to notice a few little nitpicks. Little nitpicks that became bigger and bigger and bigger. Like this moment when I try to do a little 30-second note embellishment, but it rushes a bit. Or this spot where I could have set up the end a little better. There was no time to do anything about it now because I was set to hop on with Nate in just hours. Hey y'all, so it's T-minus 3 minutes before I talk to Nate Wood. He's agreed to review the recording. As usual, we're gonna see what he says. I'm a little nervous about this one because I decided to go with like a not perfect take. I don't think it'll matter though, we'll see. Anyway, see you on the flip side. And actually, Nate said something that made me feel better. Something about perfectionism.
Learning to live with the flaws and maybe thinking, oh yeah, like later listening back and being like, actually, I like that flaw, you know? And part of it is just learning to trust that, like, I think this sounds good enough, you know? But you have to go through that period of like extreme anguish of listening back to yourself and being like, oh, I hate this. And breaking down why that is, you know, and not letting it get you down, you know? I mean, if that happens to you, you know, it can happen to people. And then, yeah, you just have to kind of work through it, I guess, just by recording yourself and listening back all the time. And then, you know, like you said, like you would be like, oh, next time I better not screw this up. And that could be a myriad of things. That could be like, I missed the hit because I didn't know the song very well. Or it could just be, I rushed that figure. And it's a simple figure, but I rush it every time. And there's no way you're going to fix it until you practice it, you know? I mean, you might be able to be like, lay back here, but then, you know, you're kind of driving on like a course at that point. You're not really like allowing yourself to be creative. So it's just a tricky dance. But really, the whole point of practicing all the time and playing all the time is just so that you can quiet all this and just play, you know?
Which is good because soon it was time for me to ask him for his reaction. My heart beating in my chest, I ventured the question. Well, do you have any specific feedback on Greenblatt?
No, it sounded great to me. You sound so much better than you used to.
Oh, thank you.
It's really interesting. I was thinking about how just the sound of drums and the touch has really changed since the internet.
Ooh, tell me more.
Well, okay, so I have a drumstick here. You seemed more like a little bit more like a this player before, and like kind of like a wetter sound, you know, like the way that I imagine the popular way that people used to play. In terms of a synthesizer envelope, do you know synthesizers very well?
No, but I'm kind of tracking what you're saying.
So there's the ADSR, which is attack, decay, sustain, release. Like any analog synth will have ADSR. And before it was like the attack was like boom, and then it kind of, there wasn't a lot of decay. It was like it sustained kind of right away. It was like a transient, but it wasn't as big. There was a lot more sustain. Now the way people are playing is huge attack, very quick decay, and the sustain is lower. And what that gets you is a punchier sound that's not as loud for as long. So you can actually, it's more hip hop is what it is really. But you can play kind of louder and punchier without running over the music, you know, which works really well for playing, you know, beats with jazz groups, or, you know, just sounding punchy but not sounding loud, which I found really hard to do with like this kind of Molery fulcrum here kind of thing. So I don't know if you're doing this, but I switched to this like 3 years ago, like the Tony grip.
Yes. For everything except for like quick singles and doubles.
Exactly.
And any kind of loud playing, it's mostly back fulcrum.
Yeah. So that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you didn't do that before, but now it's like, oh, that's that sound now. Everybody's doing it. It's a better way to play the drums, I think. I mean, it's like, that's the sound I always wanted.
This was very interesting to hear. First of all, I was flattered Nate liked my take, and also impressed that he nailed the change I'd made in my playing in the past few years. But most importantly, he liked it. Okay, we just wrapped with Nate. As I'm sure you'll hear, that was an amazing conversation. Super complimentary about Greenblatt, really, really flattering, and also had some really interesting thoughts. So can't wait to share it with you guys. All right. I think Nate's thoughts about perfectionism were really deep, but Particularly the bit about how, even if you hear a flaw, you shouldn't necessarily try to fix it consciously in the next take, because that's not being free. No, the only way to sound better and still be free is to change your playing so the improvement comes naturally when you're just vibing. A concept that's going to be really important when I deal with the critique of a future guest on the 80/20 pod.
So you want me to record on my end too?
And a critique which, while fair, is more pointed. But that's next time on the Nate Gets Great Drummers to React to Him Playing Their Stuff series. And I'm not saying you should subscribe and hit the bell, but if you want to see it when it drops... Anyway, you guys, if you'd like a completely free 3-video mini course I don't share on YouTube, which will get even deeper into some of the concepts we explore in this video, just click the link below this player and enter your email address in on the next page, and I'll send that to you completely free. Dudes, that's been real. Always enjoy these. See you again real soon in another Lesson of the Week. Yeah, fuck.